Okay, so I got the intake manifold in the mail this week. Seems like it was packaged well. Let's have a look inside of it. Looks like it came with some pipe plugs. Wrapped in some fairly heavy plastic. Foam padding on the top and the bottom. Looks like it's for a small block Ford. So this is the least expensive intake manifold I could find. It was advertised at $129, and after taxes and shipped to my door it was $140. At first glance, it looks like the machining was done nicely. The casting surface looks fairly smooth and fairly well done. This was advertised as a low-rise intake manifold and with an RPM range of idle to 5,500. And I think that's appropriate for the engine I'm going to put it on. It's just not going to be a high revving engine. So I think that this is probably a good selection. And the other thing about it being not a real high-rise intake manifold is that it can help with hood clearance problems in some applications. Well, I guess the next step would be to drain the coolant out of the engine and start removing that intake manifold. So the first thing I noticed about the difference between these two, aside from one being a 2-barrel and the other one being a 4-barrel, is that the aluminum one, no surprise, is remarkably lighter than that cast iron one. I mean, it's much, much lighter. It looks like these mounting holes are basically in the same place, and back here. It looks like I might need a bushing for that, because it looks like that pipe thread's a little bit larger than that one is. And there may be other ones that are slightly larger throughout. Another thing I'm noticing that's different about this one is the way the ports are laid out. You can see with this one here, it comes down through here and then has to make a sharp turn to go that way and a pretty sharp turn to go this way. Whereas on this one, it just comes out and straight, pretty, a much more direct route to that port. And the same for this too. It seems to be a much better layout there. And to kind of get a rough idea about the height differences between these, they're not sitting on the bench exactly the same, but that aluminum intake is not much taller than the 2-barrel intake. So, okay, so now I just want to do a quick test fit on this just to get is it basically going to fit? Make sure see if the bolt holes line up. The holes look like they line up pretty well. And the other thing I want to know is, do the stock intake bolts work? No, that one's too short. Looks like I'll need a couple longer bolts for that. And next I need to lay a bead of silicone along these rails here, front and rear. Alright, I'm gonna pretty much call that installed. I guess the next thing to do would be to check the ignition timing, warm it up, check it for leaks, and then see what kind of difference that made. Alright, so on that run, it was running kind of rich. It went all the way down to like 10.3. So I don't know what jets are in this carburetor, so I'm going to take the fuel bowl off and see what they are. Well, this number on this carburetor was 80457-2, and I found a jet size for an 80457-1, and they said that should be 64. So I'm going to try a set of 64s in it and see if that helps it any. Okay, so this is the torque and horsepower numbers from the two-barrel setup. On that day, the humidity was 83%, the barometer was reading 29.77, and the temperature was 60 degrees. Today, the humidity was a little bit higher, the barometer was a little bit lower, and the temperature was higher. From this day to this day, everything about this today is going to lead to a lower horsepower level. The other thing that was happening on this run is that I'm not able to get, at least for the time being, I can't get the air-fuel ratio up to where I want it to be. I was hoping to get it somewhere between high 11s, low 12s, maybe higher 12s. But I couldn't do that, and the reason I think I can't do that is because I think the fuel that it's getting that's too rich is coming from the rear barrels, and I can't adjust that. At any rate, I'd say not too bad of a day, not too bad of a gain. I think with a little tuning I could get that to 195 or a little bit more, and it'd be a nice 20 horsepower gain.